These are the top 10 things that can absolutely lead to financial ruin. What's up everyone, David here with Free2Be, and thank you for joining me for another video. In today's video, I want to go over 10 things that will absolutely lead to financial ruin. So it is important to monitor these things and be aware of them so that you can avoid a financial pitfall. Now, before I get into that, if you're new to my channel, I cover financial literacy here and track my own progress to financial independence. And in doing so, I hope that I'm creating a blueprint with valuable information that people like you and anybody else can use. So if you haven't done so already, please take a moment and just click the subscribe button down below. I really do appreciate the support. It does mean a lot and it does help the channel. And if you're not new, I really do appreciate you coming back. Thanks again for the support. Okay, so these things are in no particular order, and in no way is this an exhaustive list. These are just 10 things that will lead to financial ruin if you're not aware of them and not paying attention. Now again, all 10 of these might not necessarily apply to your life specifically or my life or anybody else, but each one of these could be important on its own, so make sure you stay tuned for the entire video. Okay, so the first thing is not checking your credit report. Now guys, I strongly recommend that you check your credit at least once every 6 months or at least once a year. Now that's a full credit report. Now I monitor my credit through my banking app that allows me to access my FICO score, but I do pull a comprehensive report once a year. And I definitely recommend you doing that because you never know what kind of things can pop up. Sure, if you're looking at your FICO score through your banking app, you might see it fluctuate 20 points or 10 points or 15 points any given month, but you're gonna wanna know the detailed breakdown at least once a year. And again, I try to do it a couple times a year just to be safe. So if you're not doing so already, please make sure that you are checking your credit score and your credit report at least annually. Now, the second thing you're gonna wanna do is not neglect your employer's 401k match. Now, if your employer matches any kind of contribution you make, you're going to want to at least be putting in that much money into your plan, because if let's say that your employer matches 4% and you are not up into the 4% in terms of your contribution, you're leaving 4% of your salary on the table. And that's just 4% that you'll never be able to get ever again. So make sure you're taking advantage of the match. Now, if you take away nothing else from this video, make sure you go and enroll up to the matched amount for your 401k. Because again, you'll be leaving money on the table, and that's money that you'll never be able to see again. Now, the third thing that can lead to financial ruin is neglecting maintenance on your things. So if you own a home, neglecting to maintain it could end up costing you a lot more money. Now, if you own a car, it's the same thing, and cars tend to break down a lot more than homes do. So if you own a car, make sure you're going and getting it checked out. Make sure that you're paying attention to the tires, and make sure you're changing its oil and doing all the things that are needed to sustain and have that car function at a high level. Because if it does break down, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to get it repaired. So ignoring maintenance issues, whether it is with your roof or your hot water heater or your car, could end up resulting in a big blow to your finances. So keep up with the maintenance and pay those sums of money, the little sums of money, because it's way better than paying a big chunk of money if things go completely haywire. Now, the fourth thing that could lead to financial disaster is not having health insurance. Health costs are really, really high. And if you don't have any kind of health insurance, you are going to put yourself in a really bad position should something terrible happen. Now, I know that it's kind of hard to get the proper coverage for every single thing, but at a minimum, you're going to want to have a basic coverage that'll pay for things that, could end up happening to you, and to pay for those preventative measures like going to a dentist or going and getting a checkup. Because again, it's the same kind of thing with the maintenance when it comes to your house or your car. If you're not maintaining your body, you could end up paying a ton more in repairs should something break down or be in serious trouble, as opposed to going and doing those preventative things to put yourself in the best place possible. Now, the fifth thing you're going to want to avoid is not having a budget or not creating some kind of chart that understands where you're spending your money and how you're allocating your funds. Because you're going to want to know where every single cent that comes into your door, that comes in from a source of income, you want to know exactly where that money is going. Because if you don't have any idea, you're going to probably be overspending and not saving as much as as you can. You're not going to be investing as much as you can, and ultimately that's really going to hurt you in the future. So if you haven't done so, go back, watch one of my videos about budgeting, which I will link up above and down below, and start budgeting today. It's not really that hard. I know it sounds like it's a really daunting and complicated task, but budgeting is really simple. In essence, at the core, it's just what are you bringing in and what are your expenses, and that's how you calculate your budget. Now, the sixth thing that could lead to financial ruin and just disaster is not having any money allocated to an emergency fund. Now, what an emergency fund can do for you is basically help you avoid going into debt or borrowing money at a crazy interest rate to pay for things that otherwise you could have paid for in cash. So for example, let's say you did end up neglecting your car and now you need to replace all 4 tires, or you need to get a new alternator, and that might cost $1,500. Well, if you don't have money in an emergency fund, you're going to have to go borrow that $1,500 from, let's say, a credit card at 22% interest, which could end up costing you almost $2,500 to $3,000 to pay that thing off. Now imagine if that happened 4 or 5 times throughout your lifetime. You've effectively then paid anywhere between $5,000 to $8,000 in interest that had nothing to do with the repairs themselves. And that's money that you really could be using for almost anything else. You could take 2 really great vacations with an extra $8,000. You could buy yourself a new car, or at least a down payment for a car. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to waste it on interest. Now, the 7th thing you're going to want to avoid doing so that you can avoid financial ruin is adjusting your lifestyle every time you get a raise or come into some extra money. Now, it's a fact that as we get older, our earnings start to increase, where we start hitting our peak earning years between the ages of 48 and 57, whatever it is now. But as we get older, we're going to start making some more money. As we start investing, as we start saving, as we start, figuring out extra methods of income, we are going to start making more money. Now, what you want to avoid is adjusting your lifestyle as that happens. So if you were happy making X amount of dollars, now that you're making double that, you don't need to change up your life. You don't need to go buy a brand new car. You don't need to go buy a bigger house. You don't need to have a pool installed in your backyard. Keep your standard of living as low as possible, because ultimately what that means is your money will go a lot further. You won't have to work 40 years. You can work 20, 25 years. If you are very disciplined and learn how to live way below your means, you can retire a lot earlier because your expenses are not going to be high, and you can retire with a lot less. And what will end up happening is you'll have an excess amount of money when you are retired that you can then use on things like traveling, or if you wanted to buy that new car, you can do that then. But the key here is just not to increase your standard of living every single time your wages or income increases. Now, the 8th thing that could cause financial ruin, and this is something that may be a little dramatic because to call it, disastrous or it will cause financial ruin might be a little too much. And it's something I'm guilty of that I had been working on over the past couple years, is going out to eat lunch every single day. Now, that might not seem that crazy and it might seem harmless because it's in your budget, but spending $12 to $15 a day really starts to add up pretty quickly, guys. And one time I think I sat down and did the math, and it was somewhere around $700 or $800 that I was spending on eating lunch and just going out to eat every single month. And that to me just didn't make sense. I could go buy a month's worth of groceries for $400. So why was I spending double that just so I could go eat out? It didn't make sense. So I did cut it out. So now what I've done is I've just limited my outing to maybe once a week, just so I can have some lunch with some coworkers. But for the most part, I limit myself to that one time a week so that I'm not just wasting my money on going out to eat every single day. And again, when you think about it, like if you spend $400 a month on groceries and you would have normally spent $800 on eating out every month, that's an extra $400 that you can save, which is almost an extra $5,000 a year. And that's no small sum of money. I don't care who you are, an extra $5,000 is a great amount of money to have no matter who you are. Because again, $5,000 is an amazing vacation somewhere. So just think about that the next time you're about to go out to eat to lunch. Would you rather have that, deli sandwich, or would you rather go on an amazing vacation at the end of the year? Now, the 9th thing that could cause financial ruin is not asking your employer for a raise. Look, a lot of times we'll be in points in our career where we'll feel like we're underpaid for the work that we do. And a lot of times that may be true. But if you don't ask for a raise, no one's just gonna come and give you extra money. So leverage your work, leverage your skills. Go to your employer every once in a while and ask for some extra money. Because again, they're just going to keep you at the amount that they have you unless you speak up and ask for that money. If you don't, you'll just keep getting the 2%, 3% adjustment annually. They'll be happy to have somebody under their budget, and you'll just continue doing your job. And this is something that could lead to loss of thousands of dollars over your career. So make sure every few years or so you're asking your employer either for a raise or an adjustment to meet the market's demands and what the market is actually demanding for your role. And finally, the 10th thing that could lead to financial ruin is not thinking ahead for expected costs. If you expect that you will have to pay for certain things, or you're expecting that certain events will be happening in your life in the future, if you expect them and you know that they're happening, not planning for them is not an excuse, and it could actually put you in a really bad place when that expense comes along. So for example, if you got engaged this month, and you know that you have a wedding coming up in 12 to 18 months, start saving for it now. Because if you wait and it gets closer and you start having to make those big payments at that time, you might not have the cash flow to actually support that, which will then cause you to go into debt to pay for something you saw coming 12 to 18 months before it actually did. So if you're expecting expenses in your future, it makes sense to start planning for them now. If you want to start a family in the next 2 to 3 years, start planning for that financially right now. Why wait till the last minute? You have the advantage of time on your side. So plan for it. It just makes sense. We plan for everything else in our lives. Why not plan for financial expenses as well? All right, guys, well, those are the 10 things that could lead to financial ruin if you are not aware of them and if you don't prepare for them. So if you like the list or disagree with it in any way, let me know in the comments down below. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.